All right, time for another New Zealand aviation podcast. Paul Brennan in Auckland, and here he is again.
Martin in Brisbane.
And will we hear those, that exotic Australian wildlife making noises in the background again? I hope so.
Yeah, I don't think so, not tonight. Although the bats are very active tonight, the big bats.
Oh, the bats. Maybe we'll get one flapping past you with, during this. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm standing on this little deck. They come right over my head. They're amazing things, aren't they?
Oh, they are. And the fact that they can, use that amazingly evolved radar system to fly into caves and map out the whole surround, it's incredible.
It still kind of freaks me out that there's quite a big mammal flying around at night.
And they can see you, probably can X-ray almost right through you. Renders some sort of radar picture of you as it flies past.
Very impressive creatures. Oh, yeah. Very impressive.
And their wings are really amazing too, aren't they?
Yeah. They're
not feathered. I don't think they're feathered, are they?
No, it's just skin.
Yeah,
wow. It's just basically an extended fingers with the skin, and apparently I've watched slow motion videos and everything. It's a different way of flying that birds fly, so it's a separately developed or evolved version.
Like a parallel version, yeah.
And they're super efficient because they don't have the breast muscles of birds. They use different musculature, and they fly amazing distances.
Incredible.
Yeah, they come out of their roosts and fly up to apparently 180 kilometers for food one way, and then fly back
because they can.
They can, yeah.
I saw a video. People might have seen it today of a bald eagle swimming. Using the wings to swim, and it was efficient. It was getting along. This is a big bird,
It's like those gannets.
Oh! I saw a gannet when I was crossing the Wellington Harbour once, and obviously it was looking for food. It was flying around a few hundred metres up, but I noticed there was this little tern, which is about a third the size of the gannet, flying like a wingman formation. And I figured it was obvious that it was using the gannet's ability to spot prey. It would go in, the gannet, and the tern would go in afterwards, and it would get the debris left over from the initial struggle of the gannet getting the fish, like a metre down. They had this little thing going. It was quite amazing to watch. And as the gannet took off, came out of the water, took off again, the tern would take off with it and fly in formation until it went down again,
Watching those gannets along the ridges down in Wellington, they use the uplift off the cliffs.
Oh, they do, yeah.
And they just patrol up and down with very little energy expended.
I've seen them go up a ridge, actually accelerating like you wouldn't believe. Like on turbo.
Yeah, no, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so nice to talk again. Plenty to talk about. I thought we'd start with a bit of history first up, Martin, because I've seen the Spirit of St. Louis hanging there in the National Air and Space Museum, and it was this day back in 27, June 13th, that Charles Lindbergh was honoured with a ticker tape parade in New York for his achievement there. I think he took away a prize. It was about 20 grand, and that back then was like hundreds and hundreds of thousands in today's money. So he did pretty well out of there, and of course later on he became involved with Pan Am. He was their route proving consultant all the way through to the 707 era. So there you go. This day back in 27, and in space. And this amazes me. I want to mention this because it's incredible how far back deep space exploration for humans goes. Pioneer 10 was launched in 1972. This day back in 83, it became the first spacecraft to leave the solar system as it crossed the orbit of Neptune. It's pretty amazing, eh? 72, how long ago is that now? Well over 40 years ago. And it took all that time to get past Neptune. We've been doing this for a long time. And now look at what's happening. You're always interested in the SpaceX activity, and they've just done something incredible, haven't they?
Well, incredible to me. SpaceX hopes it's quite routine. So yesterday they launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. I've obviously stayed up and watched the launch. They took off through a thick ground fog such that you couldn't see the rocket. They've got those cameras just off to the side where you can see everything stacked up. You couldn't see it. It was just white. They had a camera up on the hill. It launched. It punched through the fog, went on up. The interesting thing was it was apparently their most valuable launch to date because it was carrying like over $1 billion worth of satellites.
Wow.
Three reasonable sized satellites.
You don't want that one going wrong, my golly.
No. So this is basically the Canadian satellite budget for the next couple of years, and they are sort of geo-watching satellites for the Canadian government. But the interesting thing is, it's the most valuable launch, and blah, 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 blah. It's a reused rocket. So that's how confident they are in the Falcon 9 reusability, that the Canadians put their prize, their crown jewel, so to speak, on a rocket that was going up for its second flight. And, of course, it was absolutely flawless. It went up, it came down. Bang.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind every time I see that. That is
the reusability
straight out of a...
Yeah. No, the reusability thing you're talking about, I was just thinking it might actually make more sense to use rockets that have already been used because machines are more reliable, aren't they, if they've had a workout already? Is that how it works?
The soul of the machine. And actually, I was watching a video about the SpaceX system the other night, actually, on the Everyday Astronaut, if anyone's interested. It's a great YouTube channel, rather geeky, but the guy has a lot of very good information. He gets really good access. But before that rocket flies, it's already effectively flown 3 times because they've had 3 static firings of that engine, and 2 of them are complete mission profiles.
Wow. Okay.
So by the time it gets to the launch pad, it's essentially its 4th launch or 4th firing.
When are the humans going to go up with all this reliability now? I know the capsule had a problem, didn't it? But recently
capsule, it was a bit more of a problem. It kind of disappeared itself.
Yeah, well, I guess they'll figure that one out. But with everything else working and enough faith in the machinery to put $1 billion worth of equipment on it to put into space, I mean, they must be really close to that, you would think.
And it's all going up on 27 Merlin engines, which cost less than $1 million each. And he's reusing them. He's reused one set 3 times now, and there's no reason why they don't think they can't get 10 launches out of them.
Very cool. Well, that's a good place to start. Let's get into the other stuff. I guess we really need to start with 737 MAX. Man, this timeline for flying again keeps getting pushed out. Who would have thought that... well, now they're talking... according to the FAA, what I'm reading here in the Time magazine website, they're talking December.
Yeah, to be confirmed, but yes, sources within the FAA have said that it'll be the end of the year, towards the end of the year, possibly December when it flies again. And as a result of the trouble they're having, it doesn't look likely that the 777 is going to be on schedule either, because the FAA, I mean, if you're going to complain about the 777 MAX being grandfathered in, it's almost worse for the 737 MAX flying in. It's almost worse for the 777 because that's a new wing and a completely different fuselage. Well, a markedly different fuselage because it's got bigger windows.
Yeah.
So the old grandfathering is going to be looked at pretty closely on the new 777s as well, I suspect.
Well, they're talking about first flight for that at the end of the year as well, and it was supposed to be July, wasn't it, originally? So, obviously something's up there. What about those images of the production of the MAX piling up at Boeing Field and Place? Like there's like dozens of them just sitting there.
Well, there'll be over 100 because when did the plane stop flying? March, April?
Yeah.
So there's 42. What's 42 a month? So it's 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, 120 odd, plus the ones that are grounded.
At what point do you start thinning out, for short to medium term, the actual production output because there's not enough places to put them? I
know, that's how do they do that? Where do they put them? Because they can't slow down the production line because that's just too hard. They do what the car companies do. When the car companies have an overproduction of cars that they're not selling, they just scrap them off the line.
Wow. That could happen because here's the perfect storm of the worst case scenario. Probably won't get to that, but this is what, or it could get some way towards this. You've got all that inventory sitting there. You can't deliver it. Once it comes time to make them safe, and let's say FAA approves them all, then you've got airlines who are very grumpy if they haven't been fully compensated for the problem. See, Iceland Air have let go all their MAX 737 pilots, so there's an example. They only prepared to go so long before they said goodbye there. But you've got all these aircraft sitting around. You've got carriers cancelling or being reluctant to take them, starting to wiggle on price, unit price, to build, and be as grumpy as you can possibly can for your negotiation. You could see a fire sale, or they'll take him to pieces. How long will it take to restore the flying public's faith in the MAX? That is the question.
That is the question, particularly, I think, in America, where people are quite jumpy about stuff like that, and they like to exercise their rights as consumers.
Well, I
noticed all the 737 MAX airlines have said we won't charge people to change their ticket away from a MAX-operated flight when it ever happens again.
Yeah, well, I don't know who it was, but I did see a quote from, I think it was either a Delta or American Airlines chief executive or very high up, who said, I personally would totally trust the aircraft once it's been recertified or reapproved, but I could understand if people would be reluctant. And, that's understating it.
Yeah. So, it's incredible. And all the bluster that came out after the accident. It'll be a couple of weeks and sort it out, and foreign pilots and blah blah blah. And now, no, looks like December, and who knows what else will come up.
Well, the other thing is the FAA have been left looking a little wanting here, and to restore confidence in the FAA at every level, public and all the agencies and all the government entities they are part of, interface with, they have to look like they're making an extraordinary effort here just to keep their credibility. So that's another problem for Boeing.
Yeah. So,
because you know what government departments are like when they're defensive.
Yes.
They become very risk averse. My God.
Yes, they turn even more nightmarish.
Anyway, so we'll follow that. But December, that's a long way off, and then they have to get them all. Try and deliver them all after that while they're still making 40 a month or whatever. Crikey.
Yes, so they're going to have to deliver. So December, it'll be 8 months. That'll be 4, 7 to 28. So it'll be 280, 300 aircraft to get back in the air. It'll be all the grounded aircraft to check over and whatever, get them back in the air. So that'll be 500 planes. They've got to reintroduce to service, and you wonder if they've, enough teams, handover teams, and all this type of thing, because it's going to have to happen quickly. Yeah, and the airlines that have, the longer this goes on, like Iceland Air, what can you just conjure up a whole bunch? Well, here's a question: will the type rating apply? Yeah. So will the type rating from the NG apply to this? That might be another thing that changes. So maybe all the pilots have to go off and have 4 hours extra training. Yeah. Yeah, so, well, there you go. So and of course, the planes that are on the ground are all going to have the dual sensors refitted. Well, that's the other thing. That's just a software fix. That's going to be wiring. Yeah, so that would be software, probably another detection or interface unit wired out. And then you've got to have software that talks to both of them to correlate. And, well, we'll see. But good news for Boeing is they sold some 787s to New Zealand, so that's a good thing. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a moment, because I think we should stay narrow-bodied until we get to that. And I know this is your favourite plane, and I think it's my favourite plane. I think this aircraft will go down as kind of, or how would you say, the definitive, well, let's say 757 replacement, the 321. XLR. Airbus is set to announce the launch of this at the Paris Air Show, which isn't it's only next week, and they're calling it an incremental performance push, but really it's better than that, isn't it? I mean, that again, a huge headache for Boeing here. This aircraft, it's a blocking aircraft. It's blocked them. This is something we've been talking about probably since we did our early shows. What was that? 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Well, no, 6.5, 7. So they finally done it, the 321XLR, and that does sound, I mean, you talk about landing in the pound seats for Airbus. I mean, this is a plane that What do they say? They say so it'll go from the east coast of the United States deep into Western Europe, or from Chicago into most of Western Europe. It's profitable with 130 to 140 people on it over those distances. So it gives the airlines a choice. They can either run an A330 or a 787 with 220 to 230 people from, let's say, New York to Poland.
Wow.
Or if the capacity is not there and they want to make just as much money, they can run an A321XLR with basically half the passengers on it and make the same money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a game changer. I mean, so it gives them so much fleet flexibility. You know, we can run a wide body or we can run two A321XLRs as demand picks up. We can put one wide body on, later we can put two wide body on and redeploy the 321XLR to something else. That is an amazing aircraft, especially when you consider the A320 came from, right?
Oh, no, totally. And if you, here's the thing, if the business warranted it, what a great way to add frequency without adding any cost. It's like having if you're saying 130 load factor, that's like out of two aircraft. That's like a virtual aircraft again, making the same money.
Yeah, and it'll take 180, 200 over that distance, depending upon your fit out, right?
Yeah.
So you can, if you have 140 with a low density, high premium setup, you make even more money.
Do it twice a day.
Twice a day, and that's the type of plane that'll do Wellington Perth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Think of that, Wellington Perth, and make money with 140 people on it, or 130.
It'd get to Hawaii as well, wouldn't it?
Probably would, yeah.
I see.
I'm still looking at the range. I've got the range table on my laptop, and I've been looking at them quite closely. And it's a scary plane, a very scary plane for any of the competition. Very scary.
Also,
and that's without a new wing. Wait until they put a new wing on it in 3 or 4 years.
Also, it has an application for US Transcon. They're saying 240 passengers, New York to Los Angeles, against every kind of wind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are you going to choose? The 737 9 MAX over the? I know what. Yeah, it's obvious, isn't it? So all those Transcon airlines are going to go for that. Anyone's got a 757, Delta, American Airlines, Continental. They're all going to go for that, aren't they?
Or are they going to wait for the middle of the market plane from Boeing?
You can't wait that long.
3 or 4 5 years.
Can't wait that long.
No.
So next week they're going to announce this, and I noticed also that in some of the discussion, I think it was on Airliners.net, people were saying, speaking of Airbus, you know, I think the new CEO of Airbus has said that the A380, even though it's not a sales success, it was a success for the company because it drove the whole methodology behind the A350, which we've commented before, went from an idea to production and to delivery. It seemed like incredibly fast.
It did, yeah, and by all accounts, it seems to be, you know, the airlines are loving it.
Well, they're saying that they got that so right because of the experience of the A380, so I guess it's how you look at things.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to, Air New Zealand. They're now letting people with tāmokos apply for jobs now, frontline jobs. You've been reading that, Martin? It's the big story.
I did.
So that's nice. That again, it's all about diversity. They've ordered the 787-10s. I think, what they say, 8 of them?
Yeah, but they're going to be delivered over. It's going to take them a long time. It'll be a long time before we see them.
Yeah. Now, people are speculating because Air New Zealand has expressed interest in going all the way to New York. And I guess when you hear that talk, you think, well, you know, that's why I thought A350 might have been in the frame. I don't know if the 787-9, I guess it can do it. If the Aussies can do Perth to London, we can do it, but it'll be load restricted. How can those 10s be anything more than Los Angeles or?
I think that's what the 6 tons is going to get. I haven't seen an awful lot of detail on what the weight increase is going to provide, but I'm thinking right now that the 6-ton weight increase in the 787-10 is going to allow it to fly the current 300 ER routes with a full load.
Right.
I think that's what it's going to allow. I don't think it's going to allow it to get to New York.
No. So what would you go to New York with if you're, you know,
789, the same thing that Qantas is using on the Perth London road. Yeah. Although I was watching Flight Radar the other night, and I was noticing that we'll talk about this later in more detail. But United are flying Newark to Bombay That's like a 15-hour flight in the 300ER. And I wonder if that's weight restricted.
Yeah, well,
Must be.
Yeah, that's right at the end of the range, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
so I thought that was interesting.
So how many more seats does the Dash 10 have? Well, it's about another 10 feet longer or something, 15 feet longer, something like that.
Yeah, it's not a great deal. And what I find interesting is that was never pitched as a long-range aircraft. So Air New Zealand or Boeing must be pretty keen to sell this thing, because the 10's not a great seller, and it's always been pitched as a sort of medium-range airliner. It was until now, it's never been considered a long-range aircraft.
Well, maybe we're just assuming that it is because Air New Zealand's going to buy them. These ones are going to be powered, I think, by GE. So I guess the Rolls-Royce, there was an option for them. Air New Zealand obviously don't want to go there after maybe what's happened there. But it could be that these are actually more replacements for Rolls-Royce powered 787-9s they want to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much about it. But no. I don't think the 10's going to be their long ranger.
No, and people are asking that question and wondering if that 6-ton weight increase is the game changer there. But it doesn't seem like quite enough, does it?
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's like anything else. You put 6 tons of fuel on a plane, it's going to use 3 tons lifting the other 3 tons.
Yeah, and the tankage has got to be altered, I would imagine. So how do you do that?
Or it's a container in the hold.
Yeah, well,
like the A350 Long Ranger.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Speaking of Dreamliners, back to Boeing and the maintenance side, there's been a story out this week about potential malfunction in the braking and steering functions of certain models, and the FAA have sent out a bulletin. It applies to 23 Dreamliners of Air India. Apparently, there's no problem in the air, obviously, but down on the ground. So that must relate to particular, block numbers of aircraft.
Or I don't know. You remember India, when they bought their A320s initially, they ordered the double bogey modification, so it had an extra pair of wheels on each leg.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was to cope with the Indian runway conditions, which, having been to India, doesn't surprise me.
Oh, right. So like rough runways, rougher than, normal.
Potholes.
Yeah. It says it was prompted by a determination that certain areas in the tyre wheel threat zones could be susceptible to damage, could result in a loss of braking on one main landing gear truck, and loss of nose wheel steering, loss of directional control on the ground when below rudder effectiveness.
So it sounds like when you're landing on a potholed runway and you're throwing up stones, it might be cutting one of the electric, because the brakes are electric.
No, it says here it requires installing hydraulic tubing, a pressure-operated check valve, and new flight control software. Oh. So make of that what you will.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just looking to see if there's anything more about it. No, that's really the only technical description. So that's another thing they've got to deal with.
Yeah, poor old Boeing, eh?
Boy, they've been hit, haven't they?
They have.
Yeah.
They have. It happens to the best of
them. I don't know if you follow the Russian or that part of the world, the news much. I'm always interested in the AN-124 and the 225. And what's the big prop one? The 22?
Oh, the Antius. Yeah, I think it's the Antonov 22. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Is that incredible? And it's been around for since the 60s. Incredible. There's a very
good video on YouTube of old mate bringing it into Zurich Airport.
Right.
Man, he's earning his dollars on that thing. I tell you what. He's moving that control wheel, 90 degrees, 90. Oh, it's amazing, and it looks like it's responding sort of 3 or 4 seconds after he's made the input.
Yeah.
And it's like a wallowing in, but obviously he brings it in. And then the Russian pilots or the Ukrainian pilots, they look like they light up a cigarette and have a quick drink as they taxi towards the hard stand.
Yeah, yeah, with those little fans going in the cockpit.
Yeah, little fans. And it's an amazing aircraft, that Antius AN-22.
Well, the 124, there's a story here that the Podolsky District Court of Kiev has ordered the seizure of 5 AN-124s operated by Volga Dnepr. Is that how you say it? Dnepr. For the alleged unauthorized maintenance checks performed by the Russian airline, according to the Antonov Design Bureau. the investigators in the court, the admission of the 124 to, obviously this has sort of been crudely translated, to further operation is a violation of the provisions of ICAO Convention, International Civil Aviation and Airworthiness Guidelines. The seizure of property is allowed in order to ensure the safety of physical evidence and compensation for damage caused by the crime, said a representative of a law firm here, which represents the Ukrainian manufacturer. The court acted upon an earlier request submitted by the main directorate of the Ukrainian police. It looks like they've done some maintenance, contracted out maintenance in Russia, and the accusation is that the maintenance records have been forged.
Okay.
But it doesn't say, if there's any proof or anything more here. I guess Antonov they're the actual constructor, aren't they?
Yeah, they made it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they would probably they want the business.
Sounds like a bit of a shakedown, doesn't it?
Well, they'd want the business, and they're probably too expensive to fix their own planes now, so they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, so I guess that would crimp the airlines' operations, though, because those...
Yeah, they won't be happy, will they?
5 of them. How many did they make? We should look it up. I think it was about 50 or 60 or something.
And apparently they're running out of hours quite quickly, which is why there was some talk of them making new ones.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a picture of them. They're actually quite a nice-looking airplane, really.
Yeah, they're awesome airplane. They made 55.
Oh, 55, yeah. And just I think there were 2 225s, only one ended up being finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's still going. What do you do after that's out of hours? You lose the capability, big time.
You do.
Though there's that other airframe sitting there. I wonder if they'll commission that.
Well, yeah, I think that's what they're talking of, and then building a few more, because they reckon they've got a Antonov 124 with a Dash 300 or something that's got Rolls-Royce engines and a glass cockpit and all that type of thing, and they reckon there's a bit of a market for it.
Yeah. Didn't you mention we talked about that? Weren't the Chinese a possibility or something to manufacture it?
Yeah, there was talk of that, but I think that's probably all gone by the wayside now. Those countries always talk about stuff they're going to do, and nothing ever happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so that's happened. Now I see that I've always been interested in what's going to happen to Jet Airways in India, because that was a big operation. They had a lot of aircraft. It was a big operation, and it looks like now that I see a story here from late last month, Korean Air hosted held a 2-day roadshow for grounded Jet Airways pilots. They're looking for 300 to 400 777, A330 and 737 pilots, which probably means you'll never see Jet Airways flying again.
No, that's all over, eh?
It's all over, yeah.
And Indigo is going from strength to strength.
Oh, now they set a record, didn't they?
Yes, CFM, the biggest order of CFM engines ever. They've ordered like 600 for their new fleet of A320s.
Crikey! Oh, so they're not going Neo.
I think it's the Neo. It's the Neo, but with the CFM version of the Neo. Yeah.
I beg your pardon. Yeah. Okay. 600. Crikey. 600.
So it'll be.
Do you think they'll ever have a retrofit? I imagine that won't happen, but a retrofit for older like A319s, A320s, and even 321s to put the Neo engine on them?
I don't think so. No.
I wonder how different it all is. It's probably quite a bit different.
Probably quite a different spar system. It's the whole nacelle on, yeah. So probably not.
Is it a heavier engine?
Yes, they are heavier. Yeah.
Yeah, because of that gearbox, right?
Yeah, and the LEAP, I mean, as we know from the MAX, I think the LEAP is like 700 kgs heavier than the engine before that.
Yeah, but is that much more efficient. Okay, well, there you go. So, and that is an Indian airline. What's the name of it again? Indigo. Boy, they must have got their business model right, because they got hundreds of Airbus planes, haven't they?
Oh, you look at a departure thing for Bombay Airport. It's just Indigo.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's just all the time. Yeah.
Okay, and for those who are eagle-eyed, they would have seen on Trade Me the Air Chatham's Convair. I think it's a 540 up for auction. No engines. I believe the gear's going to come off. not the one that flies out to the Chathams with passengers, Martin. You know, the one that we used to watch going over. The only aircraft heading east.
Grinding over.
Yeah, what a great aircraft they were. Boy, they were. Yeah. I think the one that they've got, the passenger one, is a 53 model. 53.
There's still a surprising number flying, eh?
Yeah, well, they're built like the proverbial, and once they got those Allisons on, the speed, you know, when we were flying, because I filmed some flights on that one, I think we were doing like 310 knots.
Wow.
You know, that's like 350 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's hauling along. It only took us like 1 hour 15 or maybe 1 hour 45 to get out there, something like that, but it was quick, and it could carry 5 tons of seafood. That's a lot. And 30 passengers, and it was fantastic. So we understand the passenger one that we're familiar with will be sold next year, and they've cannibalised the one that they're selling. Though, you know, it would look good in the backyard. You could you could fit it out as like an Airbnb or something, themed up.
Keep chickens in it.
Oh, no, that's
no.
Well, we've still got to put that 747 hotel idea into practice that we've talked about before.
Yeah, like the one in Sweden, eh?
Yeah, but look how many 747s there are. You could have dozens all around the world.
Yeah, you could.
There's so many airframes. In fact, that's the most logical thing to do with them anyway. It's another idea. So now, is there anything else? Now, this whole thing with aviation being part of a sort of mixed up in foreign policy, the American president is being very hard on the Iranians right now, and I think they've got a carrier group there near the Straits of Hormuz or whatever it is, and they could probably destroy the entire country of Iran just with that. They're saying that Iran is a threat, yet all the American airline planes are flying overhead happily.
Yeah.
So what's all that about?
I'm interested in this because I know people that live in Iran, and a good friend of mine, he has very good friends in Iran, and he goes over to Iran every now and again, and he really likes it. He says, you know, it's an interesting place, and the people are incredibly friendly. And there's a lot of Iranians actually here in Brisbane because it's you gain sort of immense social status if you have dual nationality. So a lot of them come over here, go to the States, Canada, get the foreign passport, and then a surprising amount of them then go back to Iran because they actually really like it there and they reckon it's an easier life. And apart from the theocracy, which it seems very few people actually support, and the government kind of lets them get on with whatever it is they want to do. It sounds kind of weird, but having grown up in South Africa, I can kind of see where they're coming from. As long as the government leaves us alone, we'll let things continue because it's a theocracy. It's very hard to change them because, you know, who's ultimately in charge, right?
Yeah.
Also, the government seems to think. So anyway, I get quite a lot of information from Iran, and they're all a bit puzzled about this saber rattling which is going on with the States and how dangerous Iran is and everything. And so I thought I'd just have a look, and you get onto Flight Radar, and there you go. Every day there's American Airlines, United, Delta, on their way to India, overflying Iran. So they must be paying their air navigation fees. They're speaking to Iranian flight controllers. They've probably got alternate airports in Iran should the worst happen. The only planes, cargo planes, American-registered cargo planes are overflying Iran. So you wonder, how bad can things be if that's still going on? The only flights that don't overfly Iran are cargo flights that are coming from Afghanistan. And that's because the Iranians have requested that the U.S. forces don't overfly Iran with military stuff, because that would upset Iran's allies. So they put in the request, please don't overfly us if you're full of military equipment. And the Americans apparently honor that.
Well, okay. I mean, obviously, if Iran shot down an American airliner, all hell would break loose. So they would never do that, would they? They would never do that. That'd be the craziest thing.
They wouldn't do it on so many levels.
Yeah.
You know? They don't really haven't. You know, the speaking to the Iranians that I know here, they're actually almost obsessed with America.
It's a weird situation.
They love it.
It's a very well, and every time Trump talks about Iran, he always praises the people. He said the people are amazing. It's just the mullahs that are nuts. So but I guess you've got to keep pressure on them. But everyone thinks back to that Airbus being shot down back in
Vinciennes.
Was that the 80s or 90s? I mean, that left a real bad taste. That did.
Yeah, that was, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about a mistake.
Yeah, well, okay. So, businesses, they don't want to give up their income. Of course, if they shot down an American airliner, the Americans would probably attack them, wouldn't they?
I don't think, I don't think that's ever even crossed their mind.
No, well, even if it did, you wouldn't do it. There are so many things that would stop you doing that.
Yeah.
Mind you, look what happened in the Ukraine with the Malaysian Airlines plane.
Yeah, and they never really got to the bottom of who shot that down, did they?
Well, I think they found they knew the actual weapon. I think they had the history of the actual weapon. It was just a case of which uniform of the people who had the weapon at the time was being worn, and that seems to be the murky bit.
Well, you give a bunch of idiots a surface-to-air guided missile who don't really know what's going on and who are a bit jumpy. Unfortunately, mistakes happen.
Boy, if you're Malaysian Airlines, you would have felt, through those years, that unprecedented run of bad luck, eh? My God.
Geez.
Who would ever have thought? And we still haven't found... Have you seen any nutty MH370
I was just going to say, no.
theories lately? I haven't seen anything pop up. I guess people are out of shock horror. You've got to think up some other crazy scenario to get anyone's attention. It has to be more crazy than the others now. So... I haven't seen anything like that, but what a terrible run of bad luck. Anyway, okay, so business as usual, carrying on over Iran, and
I think that's. I wonder how useful that is as a true barometer of how
probably very
bad
useful
things are getting.
Probably very useful. Well, there's the other one, isn't it? That anyone who has McDonald's hasn't had a civil war for 50 years or something. I guess if you're still overflying hostile airspace, things aren't too bad.
Yeah, so it might be pretty good. Put a marker on UA Flight 48, and if it starts diverting around Iran, phone your mates. Say, listen, guys, things are about to get hot in Iran.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Oh, now, one thing I've noticed, you've just reminded me of, because, the sort of military flying and all that sort of stuff got me thinking. Some of these reports that have been coming out from... I was watching a video the other day, and it was one of the pilots off the Nimitz aircraft carrier, F-18 guy, been flying for 15 years, and the UFO sightings that have been... reported. These are real things, man. You can't doubt this. You can't doubt this anymore. They've got it caught on film. The physics of the movement of one specific object anyway literally defied gravity.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that nothing showed up on radars, yet they could clearly see these things visually.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, man, and
crazy, eh?
And real. In fact, I saw an interview. I think it was on a Fox clip that I just came up on the feed there, and it was a military person, very serious military person. He was asked the question: has the U.S. government got any debris material from a UFO? That was a straight up question, and the guy said, "Yes, I believe they have." So I don't know what we're going to find out or what's happening here, but it's sort of gone to the next level in a way,
Yeah. So maybe all our local posturing and all that is all for nothing because we're about to be visited from the people who are really in charge.
Well, maybe they're already here. It's just, can you see them or not?
Yeah.
But these are, I mean. And unless I have seen one myself, but I got no way of knowing what that was, and it was not spectacular. It was just a pattern of lights over a period of time. But, when you're actually tracking these things visually and they're moving around in front of you and you're watching the action, like no inertia in any of the changes of direction.
Zigging and zagging.
Yeah, vertically ascending, climbing from hovering above, and they estimated this object was in the region of 40 feet long, and just a tube, like one of those capsules that you get drugs in, from the drugstore, but big. And it went, he reckoned, from 0 to 20,000 feet in seconds. Seconds, right in front of them. I remember once talking to an ANZAF pilot who's dead now, and he was a very experienced ANZAF pilot, and we spent a few days filming some of their operations, and I came across this guy and I interviewed him, and I thought, well, I'll ask him, just in the casual conversation. It wasn't on video, it was after we interviewed him, we were sort of chatting away. I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And he sort of looked at me and sort of, was thinking I could, maybe he was thinking, well, shall I actually tell him or not? What do I do here? So he said, yeah, well, actually, I have seen a UFO only once, and he was flying 727 from Sydney to Brisbane, about halfway up the coast, and he said this object was like early dusk. He was describing it, so plenty of visibility, but sort of late in the afternoon, and he said this object passed in front of them. It was hard to tell how far ahead, but he said the velocity is like you've never seen before. He said he's seen F-111s doing over Mach 1, and it was way faster than that,
Wow.
And the co-pilot saw it, and they I'm just remembering how he described it, and they sort of like, did you see that? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that too. What the hell was that? So anyway, they called up after sort of debating for a few minutes whether they should, because you sort of reveal yourself as a potential nutcase in this situation. They called up the area control, whatever it was, and asked if there was any unidentified traffic in their area.
Yeah.
And the controller came back and said, actually, yes, we've got this thing showing up on the scopes, hovering at, I think it was 13,000 feet, like 20 miles off the coast of, I don't know, southern Queensland.
Yeah.
And that it had they'd watched it cross their scope at a velocity that they've never seen before, and thought it was actually a fault with the radar.
Wow.
And then they flew along a bit more, and they thought, well, okay, we'll check again. So they radioed in again and said, well, is that object still around, and where is it in relation to us? And it had moved, I don't know, like 30 miles in a matter of like 15 or 20 seconds.
Gee.
And this is on scopes. And this guy's telling me, like, straight up,
Yeah.
And then later on, I think he got a call from another pilot who didn't want to transmit at the time, who was flying another plane in the area, who said that they'd seen it as well.
Wow.
So, point being, you got to start to wonder seriously, without sort of all the the tinfoil talk and everything. What is actually going on here, and how far is it off before something, really incredible is revealed, which is non-debatable.
Yeah. Bring it on.
Oh no, I can't wait. I wonder what they make of this crude rocketry.
Yeah.
They'll be watching.
Maybe Elon Musk is one of them.
Yeah, well, it could be, but you'd think it'd be far more sophisticated if you've got machines that can turn and change direction instantly without any example of any inertia or anything like that. Then I presume you're way ahead of where we think we're at.
Yeah, they're probably going to break it to us slowly.
Anyway, so that's an interesting one. Oh, I saw something here. Where are we? Oh, yes. Remember how we've talked about the 737-9 and its very long runway usage?
Yes.
Here we go. Just last week, United 737-9 Denver tail strike on landing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a big surprise.
No surprises there.
No.
Another problem.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Look how twitchy it is.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's probably been a few tail strikes on takeoff too, I would imagine.
Yes.
Anyway.
I spoke to somebody I know who used to be a 737 pilot, and I'll check back with him because I asked him if he wanted to be on the show. He used to fly 737s in Indonesia, the 600.
Oh, the 600.
The 400, the 500, and the 600. And the 600 was a really short one, right?
It was, yeah. It was 73200 length, I think.
Yeah, and he said, we were talking about the grandfathering and the type certificates and everything. He said, they're all pretty similar to fly, but if you wanted to, if you did want to sort of say, in terms of twitchiness, he said the 600 is actually quite hard to fly because it was quite overpowered.
Yeah, it would be.
And power changes, 22,000 pounds of thrust on each side. He said power changes had quite a big effect on the aircraft. And he says jumping from a 400 into a 600, he said you really had to have your wits about you.
Yeah. Because
it wasn't quite the same.
Well, you imagine
but it was all on the same type certificate. 73200,
which came out with, what was it, 12,000 pound or 13,000 pound JT8Ds first up. You're adding, my God, look how much you're adding. Almost 10,000 pounds of thrust aside. You're adding to the same, pretty well the same airframe configuration.
Yeah, he said you had to think. Oh, I'm on a 600, and that's what's going to happen. It wasn't the same.
Okay, well that doesn't quite make for that seamless, like you say, grandfathering. They're all the same. Mind you, that would go for different length versions of other aircraft as well, I suppose. Yeah.
Although that is the benefit of fly-by-wire.
Yeah, you can.
They might behave differently, but you can make them behave the same, even if that's to the detriment of the overall performance.
You can imagine the difference going back in the day between the first 707s without the turbofan engines and the leading edge slats and everything. The early versions had a lot cruder setup. The difference between the takeoff performance of those two types would have been like a different aircraft.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Not
so much now.
We'll try and get him on the show because it's really interesting, especially since he flew the classics, and he flew them in Indonesia. Because he says, the facilities in Indonesia are really good. He said, it's not as bad as you think. Although he flew for Garuda, and a lot of their procedures and a lot of their training is still, this is interesting, a holdover from colonialism, terrible thing. A lot of it's handled by KLM.
Right. Okay. Well, that's
they have Garuda has very close ties with KLM.
Very credible.
Or had.
Very credible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll speak to him in a couple of weeks and see if he wants to come on.
Okay. Well, that would be great. We'd like to hear it, especially maybe even talking about the MAX situation as well. Just looking through the incidents, the most common thing is smoke in the cabin.
Yeah.
There's at least one a week. Anyway, okay, so maybe a quick Bring Our Birds Home update, Martin, for you.
Hang on. There was an air taxi thing, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's mention this. I've got it right here. The flying taxi being tested in New Zealand. Yeah, that's the one. In a quiet part of I'm reading from a Stuff article here, quiet part of Mackenzie country, you'll find some of our most beautiful scenery. The future is taking flight. And while Uber made headlines this week for announcing, this is only a day old, the story, a flying taxi service, New Zealanders realise a similar flying car technology is actually being tested on home soil, could be buzzing around our cities within a matter of years. So it's called the Cora, and it's sort of like a microlight sort of cabin, but nicely done, 2-seater with about 6, I guess they're electric props, rotors to lift it up, and they've got a propeller on the back to push it along, and they're flight testing it down south. Can you imagine a sky full of these things?
No.
Is there any? Air New Zealand are helping them out. That's the whole point. Air New Zealand are helping them out, but
I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah,
because the first one of those hitting a flagpole, which was put up the night before.
Yes,
and
that's
it's
right.
all over.
I guess
there's one flying taxi. Well, it's not necessarily a flying taxi, but it's a potential flying taxi, which I particularly admire. It's a company called Opener,
right?
And it's called the Black Fly. If you get an opportunity, go and have a look at that, because talk about thinking outside the box. This thing is. It's flown. I think it's done 22,000 flights or something ridiculous.
Well, they say this one's done 1,000.
Yeah, no, this thing's flown a lot. And
Yep.
It's flown with people in it and everything. It's just the way they've done it. It's difficult to describe. It looks like a pumpkin seed it's got a curved bottom to it.
Yeah.
And when it's sitting on the ground, it rocks back, and the wings are pointing up vertically, and each wing's got there's a whole lot of motors on it.
Yeah.
And it pulls itself up into the sky vertically like a drone. But then once it gets up to a certain altitude, it stands up. And so the wings then become horizontal to the airflow, and then it flies like an aeroplane, almost like a stagger wing without a tail.
Okay, yeah.
And it's got no undercarriage. It can land on water, and then when it comes down, it just transitions to a hovering flight, and then just puts it down on the belly, and you just get out of the thing.
Well, this is more like a conventional.
Very interesting.
It's more like a conventional aircraft configuration.
Yeah.
It takes off vertically. Yeah. It's always interesting reading the comments here. Someone's written here. Sitting in the living room, watching TV and munching on crisps. Neck minute, flying taxi peels through the roof tiles and lands on the sofa. This concept of flying can only end in tears.
I tend to agree. I'd love it to happen, but I just think it's, like these whole delivery drone things as well. I mean, maybe there's a use case for some of them, but I don't know. I just think it's people just having fun with cool stuff.
Well,
I don't know that the regulatory hurdles to get a autonomous flying vehicle to fly you through a city.
No, it's not autonomous. Another one comment here says,
boring, man.
My son is training to be a pilot and have a very good understanding of the rigorous training standards they have to meet. This includes stalls, plane malfunctions, weather, etc. So when I see articles like this, it raises more questions than providing answers. A parachute, really? Stall drops to the ground somewhere. Okay, well, I don't know what the rest of that comment. Sounds like it's going to be flown. But, anything... the first time one of these things falls out of the sky and lands on a family in a SUV down below on the motorway, we got a problem, right? We got a big problem.
And I'm not joking about the flagpole someone put up the night before.
No, I know.
Right?
That's what gets you. Things like that.
Yeah. Or someone flying a kite or something. It's a great idea. It's not. I don't think it's a great idea. It's a nice story.
Yeah.
But let them get autonomous cars working first.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. To a level of absolute reliability.
And that'll take 4, 5, 6 years until we're relatively confident with autonomous cars. And then give it another couple of years until you can fly unmanned aircraft, start bumping into things that weren't there the night before. And then we'll see how we go. But I'm not sure that I'd get in one. Although, I tell you what, I'd get in that opener black fly. I'd get in that tomorrow because that's awesome.
Yeah. The thing is that if they work and they seem to be safe, they'll be big because... who wants to be stuck in the traffic?
Yeah, but I don't want to be stuck in the traffic, so I just don't go anywhere. It's even easier for me.
Okay, all right, but you don't have much of a life.
No, just take it easy.
Speaking of a life, congratulations, you're off to Germany.
Potentially. I haven't really announced that widely, so thanks for that.
Okay, well, won't say any more. I mean, you could just be going to see your son to talk about C-Series.
I could do, yeah. There is a chance that I might be going to Germany for some months on a contract. Yeah.
Well, and then we can get a first-hand look into what they're doing in that part of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be filing my report.
And you flew on the A321NEO Air New Zealand, and we were having a at WhatsApp conversation while you were 120 miles off the coast of New Zealand.
Yeah, free Wi-Fi.
And I was sitting in a picture theatre foyer, and I thought, well, this is completely normal now.
What an awesome airplane! Well, that's quiet. That thing's quiet, mate. It's like, it's takeoff power. Because I was really interested in that aspect of the flight.
Yeah.
So quiet.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's good.
I don't think it's as quiet as an A380. The A380 was. You wondering how it was getting off the ground. It was that quiet. But the A321, very, very quiet.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah, well, you seem to be enjoying it when we... do we actually talk? I think, did we actually have a conversation, or was it text? I think it was text.
No, it was text. We were just texting, yeah.
I
don't know whether the link would support chat. It's a pretty slow link.
And you sent your position, too. I had a little map. I could see where you were.
Yeah. No, that's. Yeah, I'm surprised Air New Zealand gave that away for free, because they sure as hell don't give much else away for free.
All right, now I get to bring our birds home. Planning to go to Brazil, third week of July, Martin, to meet the management of the airport company, their legal office, hopefully the judicial office, which is going to be doing this court order to separate the plane. We've talked about that before. I'm going to be filming it. I even might take a drone, to do that. So going of course, go to Brasilia, Sao Paulo first, grab Cesar Nogueira, who's our guy over there, go to Brasilia, hoping to also meet with the Minister of Infrastructure, which now incorporates CAA, and try and get the cultural connection thing going. And then up to Manaus, we've got full access to the plane. We can go and have a look inside it. God knows what's in there. I hear there's mud in there, like a big layer of mud. There's probably all sorts of crawlies and creepies. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll film it. Today, as we're speaking, which is today, Thursday the 13th, I met with TVNZ to talk about the story, and there's maybe some opportunities there. Certainly very interested, because it's a great story, Martin. It's a great story. It's just a matter of, how do you cover something that is that big and will run for a period of time? They've got to figure that out, but it's good that they know about us now, and, anything could come from that. As for other activities, we've got a possibility of something from the States that we're being talked about, that hopefully there'll be more information on soon. And we've been talking to some pretty wealthy individuals of late, just telling them about our campaign, following up on sort of inquiries that happened a while back. So I feel like things are starting to come to a bit more of a sharper point, and it'll be fascinating. What I'm hoping that we come away with, Martin, in Brazil is actually with the airframe. I want to be able to do the shake the hand, get the court order and say, okay, and by hook or by crook, we'll pay over the money. And at least then it will belong back to New Zealand. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? It will be owned by New Zealanders again after, 81, go back, crunch the numbers. That's how long it's been out of New Zealand ownership. So that'll be
38 years.
Yep, that'll be a great thing. And it'll be a wonderful experience. And the great thing with the social media, we'll film everything, so you'll see it all happening.
I want you to film a Karate Mundi.
What?
Yeah, it's a possum-y thing.
Okay.
And they're in South America. I'd really like to see one. I reckon the plane will be chock full of Karate Mundis.
Oh gosh, I'm a bit funny when it comes to creepy crawly things. Well, I think I am, and I think I could be severely tested. But we've got to get in there. We've got to see what it's like. I need to get some good footage for the engineers so they can assess, condition damage, things like that. I know the undercarriage, I think it's the left main leg, has been snapped. So we want to do something about that because it needs to be towed off that ground. The mud apparently is gumboot top thick that it's sitting on.
Yeah.
So you can imagine
white gumboots.
Yeah, you imagine what that's going to be like. So, so that's almost locked in. And
it'd been a lot easier if New Zealand Defence Force had done you a solid and chosen the C-390 instead of the new Hercs.
Oh, yes, of course we were going to get to that. In fact, I've pretty well updated you on BOBH. Let's get to that. Predictably, they've gone for the C-130J, which they're calling the Super Hercules in the media here. Of course, it's been around for God knows how long. Was it 25 years now, that version, or 20 years?
So been out a while.
It's hardly new. I would have spent the money and gone for the A400 myself, only because I don't care about the money. And I think it would have been more. Well, it would have been way more capable, actually. But I can see why they're sticking with the Hercs, and we've got to look after our partner. Yeah, of course, and the new model's reliable. I do believe that there are some issues though for the Air Force operating this because it's certified differently than a military plane. I understand that the J model of the Herc is a civil certification, isn't it? Primarily, which
is harder than the military. So it's got all doubled up oxygen systems and all this type of thing. But yeah, the paperwork will be quite different, and the maintenance will probably be quite different if you want to keep that civil certification.
I think that's the point, that it won't be just a seamless transfer like a grandfathering process from an old model to a new model without too much difference. I think there is. In the paperwork area and record keeping and all the part numbers I know for every component are a different structure now for a start. So they'll probably have to. In fact, Lockheed Martin will probably make up the rest by selling them all the resource material to go with it, which adds another $100 million.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, right? Yeah.
It does give useful interoperability with the Australian Air Force, because I believe they have some of the long ones as well.
Well, they do, and that's again, you've got to think in those terms, because we need to have commonality with them.
Personally, I'd have bought the Kawasaki C-200, C2.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd have bought old C1s, because they look like they're straight out of Thunderbird.
They got the JT8 engines on them.
They're awesome.
But look, they've got those GE50. They've gone from what 17,000 pound thrust to what 35 or 40,000 pounds.
Yeah, well, I think the plane's significantly bigger, right?
Yeah.
It looks the same, but it's like grandfather's X. Nothing's the same.
What about that 4-engine one that they've got? That maritime 4-engine jet.
Yeah,
what the hell's that one?
That
it's like a mini DC-8 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wonder, Japanese. There you go.
Oh, well, they can do their thing. But, that would have been a very exotic choice.
Oh, and when I used to work in Japan, I was near an Air Force base just outside Tokyo, and there were a whole lot of C1s based there, and they had that sort of flat platypus nose thing full of sensors.
Yeah.
And they used to come over. My God, they look great. They just, it looked like an old Victor or something, because the English planes also look kind of crazy.
Oh man, the V bombers, the Victor especially.
The Victor, who came up with that? What were they thinking?
Oh, incredible! But apparently it flew amazingly well too.
Beautiful, beautiful with that high V tail and essentially no cockpit that you could see.
Yeah, really.
That
was so you could do nuclear strikes and not get blinded. I think was the.
Yeah, apparently they were a nightmare to fly, because you were sat sort of 6 inches below the top of the panel.
Yeah.
You could jack your seat up for landing, but still visibility was apparently appalling. And that was to save you from the flash. And
they started off, I don't know what the original engines were, but when they went to, I think they went to Conway's, didn't they? After that.
Buried them deep, yeah. Well, they had all sorts of problems. On the first two, I think the tail fell off, which is never a good thing.
Right. But you look at the, I've seen footage of the prototype, the all-silver one, and it's just incredible, man. And they, I think they had a blue one too at one stage, or an iridescent blue one, which looked crazy as well.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, blue steel, I think was one of the nuclear weapons that they carried. I think it was painted up for that. But anyway, who came up with that? Crikey!
Just amazing.
Yeah.
It's actually my when I boot up my PC or my laptop, I've got a nose-on picture of a Victor bomber.
Yeah. No, they're great, and even the horizontal stabilizer at the back. It's what do you call
like
the
V-tail?
The ahedral or whatever the angle of is incredible. Yeah, it's like incredible. It's really pronounced.
Yeah.
Boy, what an era! What an era!
And the C1 looks like that, and the C2 looks similar, kind of similar.
It was never going to be that was we're never going to buy a Japanese airplane. It wasn't going to happen.
No.
So the C, but how come it takes so long to get them? Oh! By the way, as we record today, it was in the news that all 5 of the RNZAF Hercs are on the ground. None are airworthy as of today.
Wow. Okay.
Apparently, one's going to be back in the air tonight. It's in Australia, but as far as today is concerned, if you wanted a C-130, if we had a disaster today, there would be no C-130s to support it.
No.
Think about that.
It's not a good thing.
So anyway,
surely you can ask the Aussies to pop over in a C-17 and do it all in one.
Well, you'd have to do that. Here's the other thing. Didn't they spend $500 million on doing those things up? About 4 years ago with a glass. What was the point of that?
No.
What was the point? That's madness.
Well, didn't they updo the Orions not that long ago?
Well, I can kind of understand that if there wasn't an immediate stopgap filler. I don't know how. I think they committed to that before the 7.3 Poseidon was around. But there've been C-130s, J models around for a long time. They could have, instead of spending $500 million on doing these things up, and now none of them can fly as of today, and the parts are hard. I think they're having trouble getting parts. They're getting so old now. They're not. The manufacturer's not supporting them, but they should have made the order back then. That $500 million is half the cost, or nearly, of the order.
It's outrage over things like that which makes the financial system work, because in a debt-based economy, money shmoney. There's no such thing as real money, and there's no such thing as real value. It's just people's personal outrage that perpetuates the myth that money's worth something.
The taxpayer calls upon this resource, and it's not there because they're all broken. I mean,
yeah. Well, there is that. There's a fundamental lack of capability. Yes, but let's not worry. This is my new thing. In a debt-based economy, don't worry about the cost.
How demoralised would you be today if you were in the Air Force? How demoralised would you be knowing that all your useful machines cannot fly?
I'd be very demoralised.
Oh, my golly. That's embarrassing, come to think of it. That is embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, why would you join the? Oh, I don't want to. I think the people in the Air Force do a wonderful.
Oh no,
job.
I'm not going to.
How's that for a quick catch?
No, I feel sorry for them. Because
I feel sorry for them.
I know they've got pride and they do a good job, and then they look at that and look up the line. It's not necessarily even their management or hierarchy. It's at the political level. For God's sake.
You wouldn't join the Air Force out of fly airplanes these days, would you?
No.
I was in Palmerston North a few years back, and I was peering through, wandering around the airport, having a look, and there was some Air Force King Air 200 had landed.
Right.
And they were obviously on a training flight. There were four.
It's about 3 minutes from Oaxaca. It's only about 3 minutes from there.
Yeah, I'd call them kids.
Yeah, well, they are. Yeah.
Man, they looked happy, and I thought, good on you guys. They look like they've been having an awesome time.
Yeah,
and they were obviously shooting landings in this off base and probably flying around to other places. And you just think, mate, good on you, and you're lucky. I actually thought at the time, man, you're really lucky. You're in the New Zealand Air Force and actually getting to fly something. Well done.
Well, yeah, maybe not so much now.
No.
Well, not the big stuff anyway. There's probably only ever one 757 working at any one time as well, probably. So anyway,
yeah.
But
anyway, let's not go too far.
If I was running the place, there would never be that problem, Martin. It would never. That would never. I would make sure that would never happen. Never.
Well, if you were running a place, they'd have F-22s.
Oh, I see. That the Poles have just bought the new. What's the latest American one?
F-35.
Yeah, 23 of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to mention, it was just on the tip of my tongue. That it's dissolved. Oh yes, speaking of the Japanese, they've only just retired the F4.
Oh, geez.
Only a few weeks ago.
I watched the video. There's a great video on YouTube again. Guess how much TV I watch? No, I watch YouTube.
Well, same.
Just a wonderful, wonderful sort of 20-minute, the final flights of the Japanese Phantoms. Yeah. Just amazing air-to-air footage. Close-up landings, takeoffs. Oh my!
Wasn't it 60 years in service or something?
Yeah, what an awesome aeroplane! Really?
Man. Yeah. From the McDonald Company of St. Louis.
That's about as far as I'd go. If I had an Air Force, you'd be flying Harriers, Phantoms, and F-105s. That's it. That's all you'd have.
F-105, the Voodoo.
Yeah.
Oh my God! What a plane!
Oh.
What a plane!
Massive.
Big.
On stilts.
Yeah, and incredible looking. Though it's pretty hard to go past the dual seater Hawker Hunter. My God, that's
nice looking,
yeah.
But kind of small.
Yeah, not as fast as the Voodoo. Crikey.
Yeah,
but the F4.
There's lots of other, and of course I have Victor bombers. I'd have a whole bunch of Victor bombers.
Yours would be like a museum Air Force.
It would be like a museum.
But you could still do some serious damage with some Phantoms. My God,
Gee, I tell you what, you'd do enough damage in a F-105 if the engine stopped and you crashed.
Yeah, crikey, they were big. I remember seeing one at I think in Arizona once, and just being so impressed.
One J79, and I mean, you can barely touch the fuselage when you walk up to it. It's that high off the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
No, amazing. Yeah. I mean, just amazing.
Anyway, so 60 years, I think it was six decades, I think they said, of the Phantom and Japanese air self-defense force, whatever they call themselves.
I was in Annapolis, Maryland. And there's the Air Force, there's the Navy Academy there, and they've they've got a Phantom on a pedestal in like a roundabout.
Gate Queen or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, gee, it's big, eh?
Well, I used to watch them fly at the Oshkosh Air Show. They at the memorial flight. They had an F4, and they would scream past and do the vertical because they're big. They've got
huge.
Two engines that are just as powered as a 737-200.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
I like the British. The British say, "Oh, we're going to take the Phantom and we're going to put better engines in it that makes it slower." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
And watching them like land and take off on that little Ark Royal, my God.
Yeah,
They must have had some heart-stopping moments on that thing, man.
I tell you what, you got to on any carrier, you got to be pretty brave, eh?
Yeah, but that was quite a small ship.
Yes, it was a tiny ship. I went on the Ark Royal as a kid, and I remember it pulled into Durban in South Africa, and they had a walk-around thing, and I remember, and I was young, I was real young, and they had one of those Westland Wasps.
Oh, yeah. We used to have them on the frigates here. I know the one you mean, like a flying bedstead with a cabin on the top.
And I looked at that thing. I said, geez, I don't know if I'd go up in that thing. It just looked like a random collection of bits.
Yeah, I know the...
Oh, okay, you'd be keen.
I know the one you mean.
I was reading an article about a test pilot who'd done some of the test flying on, and I've always remembered what he said. He said, auto-rotation in a Westland Wasp, he came down like a greased anvil.
Greased? Yeah, bang. Oh, what about that chopper that crashed in Manhattan?
You landed on the roof.
Yeah, it's some law firm connected to the Clintons, so everyone's talking.
Oh, there you go. You go.
Some conspiracy thing going on there.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so, the poor old Auckland travellers have been affected the last week or so. It's like fog virtually every morning. Gosh, they go nuts when the airport it's not working. Anyway.
Oh, have there been fog in Auckland?
Yeah, there's been fog, yeah, last few days.
How's the weather there?
Very stable. Very stable. Though we had a huge electrical storm the other day, and the Sky Tower got hit, the big shot of the big fork lightning.
Oh, geez, talking about lightning, did you read about that guy, that poor motorcyclist in Florida?
Yes, I did.
Jeez,
he was
what a way to go.
Riding along, and he got hit by lightning.
On his helmet, and it blew up the helmet.
Oh, crikey.
He got struck on the helmet disintegrated, and then he went off the road. Although I think he was, by the time he went off the road, he was long gone.
Yeah, you'd be sort of pretty well zapped. Either you're stunned and don't know what's going on, or you're dead already.
Or you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't have put that metallic foil on my helmet. Or the aerial for my...
I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, but geez, what are the odds? What are the odds?
Yeah.
Well, there is that phenomenon that people have been hit by lightning when the electrical storm has been a long way away. Somehow, anyway. Okay, well.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested in watching another YouTube video, I'm actually paid by YouTube to put out these random.
Yeah, that's all right.
There's a really interesting flight of a guy. I think he's flying from Kansas City to Florida in a CR-22 Cirrus.
Yeah.
Up in the flight levels at 24,000 feet.
Wow.
On oxygen, and he's hauling. He got up there to pick up the wind, and he did it all non-stop.
Incredible. A great plane.
Yeah.
I've flown in a Cirrus a few times.
Plane.
Real nice.
Great plane.
And I bet they've come along. Yeah. I think Cessna own them now, don't they? Or bought them out?
Did they?
Oh, it was one of those companies.
Cessna bought out Columbia, which was the old Lancair or Lancair.
Yeah, someone bought them off the Clampmeyers. They started up Cirrus. So it was out of Duluth, Minnesota, I think. So I'll just see who.
Very, very capable aircraft.
Yeah, they had great aerodynamic surfaces. They had a special. I think they had a wing that you couldn't stall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. It stalled at like a ridiculous speed, like 40 knots or something. It had these sort of wing, these fences and different sections of the wing.
If you want to watch that type of thing, Horton. Remember Horton in the Second World War? They made flying wings.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
The Horton brothers.
Yeah. I remember the Rockwell one.
Well, there's a new company called Horton, funny enough, in Germany, and they're selling a light aviation flying wing.
Oh, okay. Wow, that'd be cool, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I just don't know how they don't keep.
Oh, here we go. In 2011, Cirrus was acquired by China Aviation Industry General Aircraft, a division of the Chinese state-owned Aviation Industry Corporation of China. In addition to its Duluth headquarters, the company has operational locations in both Grand Forks, North Dakota, and Knoxville, Tennessee. There you go. Chinese own it now.
There you go. And the Indians own Gippsland Aerospace.
Huh?
You know Gippsland Aerospace? They make the air vans and all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's owned by Mahindra.
Oh, right. Well,
these Asian companies are buying up general aviation.
You're going to see more and more of that, I reckon. Anyway.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So, hey, the time has flown by, you realise.
These podcasts are getting more and more random, aren't they?
I think it is what it is these days. Duration is not a big deal. People can listen to the whole thing or they can come back to it or do whatever, Anyway, and I believe we're getting good coverage, Martin. We're getting good coverage, good numbers through the downloads and up on Facebook pages and YouTube. We're doing probably in the thousands of listens every episode, and it's growing, so that's good.
No, it is quite encouraging. So obviously people like our ranting.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's ranting. Okay. I mean, people just have to imagine that if they were with us on this, that we'd all be talking like this. So I guess.
Well, I'm holding back. You know that.
Well, you always do.
Yeah, I'm holding back. I could rant for hours.
Well, we don't want to get on the wrong side of any PC, madness or anything like that. So we have to be nice and diplomatic because we've got a global audience, and we're calling ourselves New Zealand. So, Martin, we're representing this country whether we like it or not. So we have to do at least a reasonable job. Otherwise, people will think, "Oh, what is it with these Kiwis?"
We get a lot of listeners from the USA and Sweden for some reason.
Sweden?
Yeah, it must be a mistake.
Go double check the figures.
Yeah.
Turns out it's the South.
Right, but maybe they have a problem with the internet and all they get is us occasionally.
Turns out,
and Spotify is doing very well.
Oh, Spotify. Okay.
Spotify is doing surprisingly well because I don't have Spotify. I'm an Android or YouTube music person.
Okay.
But yes, if you've got Spotify, you can find our show on Spotify.
Well, there you go. One day we'll be right up there.
Yeah. Unlikely. But
anyway, okay. Well, let's end it there. We'll do it again in another few weeks. In the meantime, you've been listening to the NZ Aviation Podcast. Paul Brennan in Auckland and
Martin Noakes in Rockley, Brisbane.
Rockley, mate. And I didn't hear any galahs or
nothing.
Reptilian noises or anything in the background.
So it's winter. It's only 25 today. So
okay.
It's getting cold.
How are you going to get? You've got your puffer jacket on, have you?
I literally do have a puffy jacket on.
All right. Sleeveless.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we'll see you again soon.
All right, cheers.